and we are here talking about our life with diabetes. Let's do it. Hello again. Hello. Again, this is our podcast, Diabetically Speaking with SmartMove360. We go live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about diabetes. Welcome, new listeners. Welcome back, the ones who are following us already. We are on Spotify. You could find our shows on our Facebook group, the Diabetes 101 for Beginners. And today I would like to introduce our guest, Dr. Bobs, or you could say what will be the best way to introduce you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I follow your show and the great work that you're doing in the community. So it's a honor for me to be here. Thank you so much. And Dr. Babs is fine. I know my name is a handful, so Babs will be just okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, last week, I usually pick a topic to talk about during the month of whatever month is going. And because we have different guests and they are experts on different topics, and everybody has their own experiences, opinions, suggestions, ideas. And to hear more ideas, we keep that topic going for the entire month. And then the next month we switch to the next one. So this month we are talking about support with for people with diabetes, support with the families. And the families, it's not only your spouse or not only your parent or a child, but the whole family and close friends, because I personally believe, I'm talking about it everywhere, diabetes is a team sport. And we all need as much support as it possible. And support should be given in a way that people can receive it, not like shuffled in their throat so they choke on it. So let's talk about the standard topic of kids and diabetes. Not kids who got sick, but kids whose parents got diagnosed. And my main point is why I think it's important to talk about it is because so often we hear those conversations. I got diagnosed, I cannot eat this and cannot drink that, but why should I penalize my family and not giving it to them? So I have my thoughts about it. Dr. Bobs, what would you say about it? Why kids should be educated about diabetes? Why it is important that they aware that their parents have this diagnosis?
Yes, that's a great question you asked, and it's one that I'm so passionate about, not just because of my professional training, but because I have a personal experience. So it's so important. I love what you said. It's a team sport. It certainly is. Because, we hear about genetics, and even though contrary to the fact that we thought it was 80, 90% of the time, if someone has diabetes, the children will. I recall my husband, when we went for his visit, the doctor asked him, "Do you have kids?" And he said, "Yes." "How many?" "3." He said, "Well, the bad news is you have diabetes. Half of your kids are going to have diabetes." And I was like alarmed. I was like, my goodness. "Well, what's the good news?" He said the other half wouldn't. So it's so important. It's like, really, that's it? So, it's so important that we understand that even though we say genetics, the key point is now that we're discovering that really it's only 20%. The rest of the 80 is environment as well as lifestyle. So that's why it's important that the family needs to understand together, not just because you feel like, oh, well, I'm doomed, it's my family, I'm going to have it eventually, but because that's the way the family is going to get out of that chronic trend, which we call a chronic lifestyle related disease. So the
Mm-hmm.
education is important, because the way a father or a mom eats is really the way the kids are going to eat. And I
Exactly.
personally, I tell my patients, it's not isolation. We all need to eat the same way, the healthy way, the nourishing
Mm-hmm.
way, not what we call the
Mm-hmm.
SAD diet, which is standard American diet. So contrary to the
Yeah.
past, where I would just give foods that are unhealthy to my kids and say, oh, they can eat it, they're young. But no, that's not correct. We need to learn together as a family how to eat nourishing food so that we can prevent this disease. And if we have it, we can reverse it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. I also I've heard that and I thought about it, and really, it's a lifestyle disease.
Yes.
Yes, there are certain tragic events happening to people, but this is very small percentage of all uh, numbers of people who are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, right?
Yes.
Uh, so majority of people, yes, genetics, you cannot scratch it out.
Mhm.
It's contributing, but it's not that you are destined to
That's
have it,
right.
that you're going to have it. Um, I think the most important thing what we are inheriting is not the disease,
The
but the habits,
lifestyle. That's right.
the
The
habits, the
habits. Hmm.
traditions, and you've seen the number of people in our group. We have over 100,000 people in the group, and people from all over the world. People are from Australia and Asia, and people from Africa, and people from US and Europe, all sorts of different traditions
Yeah.
also. And some people eat rice on a regular
Yeah.
basis, another eat cabbage on a regular basis, and another eat potatoes on a regular, this is tradition that you cannot break out
Yeah.
quickly, and it's much easier to do it with the kids. And I think this is something that I I believe kids need to understand why it's happening too, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's so important because, children need to understand that. And of course, after that visit with the doctor, this was a few years back, we had to sit and be real with my kids. Well, even though the doctor said this, well, I'm glad that I have the
Mhm.
additional training to know that that's not absolutely correct, right?
Yeah,
So we need to change our eating habits together. Let's eat foods that are
exactly.
nourishing. I mean, of course, if 80%, if we say at least 80%, not that I'm trying to restrict you from, maybe having a candy here and there, but how about filling up with the nourishing foods together? Because daddy will be helped and we will be helped in the long term, so that we can
Hmm.
minimize medication or maybe even get off of those medicines. And so with that education, and it takes time, so give yourself grace, because we are creatures of habit and it takes a time. We've eaten the same way. I love rice, white rice. It took me time to learn
Hmm.
to change it to, brown rice or quinoa, whole grain. And my family with my
Hmm.
kids, because they understood the why. They didn't want daddy to be sick. They didn't want him to have multiple medications, right? And generally, we just don't even
Hmm.
like taking meds. And so, with that education, gradually it became an understanding of why we were doing it and finding ways that we can make it work as a team effort. And so that's why it's so important that in my practice, whenever a family member is diagnosed, I say, who else can I talk to? Is it your mom? Is it your brother? Is it your sister? Let's talk about this together. The treatment as well. Who is part of your team, your healthcare team? Of course, your physician, but you're the main member, but your family members are also part of it, because together, that's how we're going to have healthy families. So I like that you asked this question. It's so important. It's not a one-man show. Not at all.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I have to apologize, Dr. Bobs. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? What kind of doctor you are? Because I failed to introduce you like properly right up front. So can you please give us a little bit information about you.
Yes, no problem. Always happy to share about myself. So I am Dr. Dolapo Babalola. I am a family physician and I practice full spectrum family medicine. So I say from cane to, from cradle to cane. And I am
Mhm.
expertise even boarded in lifestyle and obesity medicine. And I have a holistic direct primary care practice in the Atlanta area, specifically in Marietta. And even though I practice full spectrum family medicine, acute chronic care, my specialty is helping families to live at their finest well-being by using a holistic approach with healthy lifestyle so that we can nourish and flourish as
Absolutely.
healthy individuals. In my home, we've been able to use those principles because it's science driven. We've been able to
Yes.
reverse chronic diseases like hypertension and diabetes. So it's always an honor to come in the midst of community leaders like you doing the same work. So thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself and what I do.
Absolutely, yes, and thank you for explaining this. And that also explains why I was so excited when you said that you can join us on this podcast, because we need people to hear different approaches to diabetes, and the, there is not one pill, way, style, diet, or anything that can help people to reverse diabetes, right? But when you hear a lot of different opinions, a lot of different experiences, you can pick something that works for you. And when we have doctors, I always love to hear their experiences for even what situations did they face, what
Yeah.
stories they can share, because someone may find, wow, this story very similar to my family. I might as well just try it.
Yes.
This may actually resonate with my kid or with my spouse. All right. So okay, yeah,
Mhm.
let's. I just want to focus on kids this time
Okay.
because I believe that kids are playing a huge role in families in the way how family act, even though kids don't understand it. But we are parents, we are trying to please kids, to nourish them.
Mhm.
We just were not educated what is the best nourishment for them,
That's right.
unfortunately.
Yes, that's right.
So um, we trying to please kids, right? We're trying to make sure that they're happy. We would love them to be healthy, but right now the situation is such that we have parents of school age
Mhm.
kids are about 35, 45 years old,
Yes.
right? So they were already growing at the time when the industry, the manufacturers were embedded in our food industry so
Yeah.
badly, and the medical community is behind on educating population on how what our food is, what do we eat, how sometimes not healthy. I'm not saying everything, but sometimes not
Mhm.
healthy it is, even though it has bright pictures and they say mom approved it. But if mom was not educated and she sees that her child eats it, she approves it because
Mm.
he eats this, not nourishing this child.
Yes, 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 yes.
So
Absolutely.
we spoke about the importance of education. Now let's imagine that yes, kid got informed that one of the parents or grandparents has this diagnosis, and now we are trying to help this adult.
Yes.
And what kids can do? How can they contribute to the 5 years old, 8 years old? What they can do? They're not cooking in the kitchen. They are just kids. They go to school, they play, they do sports. How they can contribute to this team effort to help the diagnosed adult?
Yes. Oh goodness, that is a heavy loaded question and one that we must address in our community. It's so important. So when you mentioned about the parent approved and stamped meal, I must confess I was guilty. When I look back at some of the things I brought into my home, just because of lack of knowledge, or maybe because it was fast paced, right? I mean, I brought Pop
Mm-hmm.
Tarts, I brought sugary cereal, all of that. That was our breakfast. But then they say, when you know better, you do better, right? I have a family history of
Yes.
diabetes, a family history of high blood pressure. I mean, I had to learn. So I needed to learn. And you mentioned something about the medical community actually slow at because we just weren't trained as doctors. Nutrition was barely 2 weeks. But now we've learned
Mm-hmm.
that we have a community that is, chronic diseases, 80% of what's
Yes.
going on with us is chronic lifestyle related. When you see 10 people sitting in a place, 6 of them will have one chronic disease. And if you see 10, 4 of them will have 2 or more. So it's growing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my youngest patient that had diabetes type 2 was a 9-year-old. So when
Oh
we
my.
see all this, we know that it's time to wake up and let's do the disease that used to happen in older age, maybe in your 80s, you're seeing it much younger now. And the primary culprit to all of this is our diet, it's our nutrition, it's what we're eating, it's what is in our food. And it's rather unfortunate. So we need to be our own best advocate. And so when I learned what I was eating, I had to learn to read food labels. So to answer your question, what can kids do? Parents, first and foremost, are the ones buying it, right? So they need to learn what is nourishing to your body, right? So I know there's all this school of thoughts, bad, good food, and argument about what is good. Well, I'm just focusing on what is nourishing, what is going to
Yes.
keep you alive, healthy, and well in the long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you learn to read labels, pay attention to how much added sugar is in there, how much artificial coloring, all those things, because that's not going to nourish your cells. On a cellular
Yes.
level, we want foods that will nourish our cells. And that
Mm-hmm.
goes even more for kids. So as a family, you've learned that. I learned that. I had to bring my kids to learn. Now my kids, they can look at a box, even at Trader Joe's, and know if it has added sugar. They know where to check for the protein content, how much fiber is in it. So it's a family affair. The kids need to learn. Now, if they're outside the house, you can control what they eat outside, but they can be empowered to make those decisions. Well, is this a good thing? Should I have a donut for breakfast, or should I look for a whole wheat toast? So those are some of the things that you can teach the kids and bring it up. Like show them something you've learned it, show it to them, and see if they even understand. I've been for events where all the kids are drinking soda. That's all they have. Everybody's picking a soda.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the parents are doing that, so the kids would. But with education and empowerment, I know that my home changed, and we don't have soda in our house. We have water, and if we want to get juice, then we pay attention to which juice has higher sugar content. Now, so those are
Mm-hmm.
some of the things I would say. Other things that kids can do now that they know their parents have diabetes is really to explain to them what diabetes is. Because if they don't get it, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make any sense. So if they understand
Mm-hmm.
that insulin resistance is just your body's way of just being overwhelmed. The way I describe it to kids, I tell them it's like if you have a building that you have few kids, just occupation of 6, and then you have 20 people, they're all going to be squished. They're all going to be, uncomfortable. So that's what happens to the pancreas. If you keep eating sugary stuff, it's going to be overwhelmed. It's going to be fatigued, and then it won't be able to process as well. So if they understand that, then they're mindful of what's going to happen to their parents or even them if they continuously eat. Now, for kids, because they don't see it in the long term, they might not understand.
Yeah.
So it's a continuous thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. We
Mm-hmm.
have to continuously remind each other as a family, and they need to know what are the symptoms. What are some of the symptoms? I've heard of stories where the kids knew about their patients having diabetes. I mean, their parents having diabetes, so they knew the signs for low glucose and glucose.
Uh-huh.
That's so important because if they can
Yes.
identify that, who is going to be there to help that parent if they go into a coma, a diabetic coma, or so
Mm-hmm.
that's also something that the kids need to be taught. And you'd be surprised how resilient they are. They get things pretty fast, and they love their parents, so they want to keep them well. And as they're learning to care and pay attention, they would also pay attention to their own health. And through the midst of all of this, my husband was able to reverse his diabetes, and my kids, they hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves
Mhm.
accountable, right? So it's a family affair. So those are some of the things I'll say. Definitely learn to read food labels, learn to know what are the signs and symptoms of uncontrolled diabetes, right? And then we bring it to the forefront, always continuously talk about it. And those are the things that will make it a joint effort. And we're not shaming
Yeah.
anyone, right?
Hmm.
It's just what
Hmm.
we're up against. Let's do this together so that we can conquer this world of chronic diseases. And that's the way we can only make that shift and the changes that we so dearly need in our community right now.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I hear the stories in our group when people are saying that I got this diagnosis, but I'm not telling anyone,
Mm,
and I don't want anyone to know about it.
mm,
And why my family is supposed to suffer? And I don't want to punish my kids for my mistakes. And I think about this.
mm,
For one thing, to save your life, you need to have
mm.
someone to be aware of what you have, because those low,
No sugars.
how do you call,
Sugars,
drops,
yeah.
they happen, and they happen unexpectedly. And if people around you have no idea what is going on, they don't know how to
Yeah,
react.
yeah.
And maybe all it takes just a glass of orange juice, but if they don't know,
Yes.
they may do something different. That's one thing, to save your life. And the other thing, I just believe that if this is healthy for me, if it is healthy for me, it will not be a punishment for my
That's
family.
right.
It got to be healthy for everyone.
Yes.
I'm not saying, we had this situation in the group when someone went low carb completely, like no carbs to this way. And her son, teenage son, was totally on board with her and like,
Mhm.
yes, mom, but he was playing sports and everything. And he's young man who needs carbs, right?
Mhm.
Especially when they go to play games and everything. So he actually got sick
Oh.
because he was pushing his body too much. So
Mhm.
education is important. You are not punishing, and you don't have to feed family with candies and ice cream all the time. But a good salad, good fruit salad,
Yes.
we just give this, as you mentioned, how do you call those things? The fibers,
Yeah.
gives this natural sugars that actually, I mean, you don't want to indulge on three pineapples in one sitting, right? But
That's right. Yes. Yes. You're so, yeah, and I admire that child that really wanted to support his mom. That is so supportive. But the important thing is we want things that we can sustain long term,
yes,
right? So any
yes.
crash diet, and I've been guilty. Crash diet. I want to lose weight. I want to reverse, a chronic disease, and I just go all out. But could I sustain it? Is that how I'm going to live the rest of my life? No. But
Hmm.
lifestyle
Hmm.
healthy habits where you eat your whole grains, that, and the story where people say the carbs is the enemy, it's really the kind of carbs you're eating. If you eat the
Yes,
processed carbs, that is the enemy because it's going to stress
yes.
your pancreas. But if you're eating whole grain, right, your whole grain, we're talking about your brown rice, whether you're starchy or you're non-starchy veggie within portions, of course, that is not punishment, that is nourishing even for your child. So going low carbs and not eating any of that at all, you just knock out all of them, then that's not healthy for anyone, and no one can even continuously do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I do agree. I like that you mentioned that. So for listeners to just understand that, our healthy fats is still essential for the body. It has all the nutrients, all the minerals that is needed, right? Our carbs,
Hmm.
whole grain has the fiber. We're talking about our protein, healthy proteins, all of that. It's just learning the combination to eat and the portion. But none of our nutrients should be eliminated from our table. It's just the right one that we need. So yes, I like that
Yeah.
you brought that up.
Yes.
It's so important.
All right. Well, great conversation. We have 1 minute to go.
Okay.
So I am asking for one quick tip that you could give to parents how they can speak or start speaking with kids about their diagnosis.
Hmm.
Because it's not an easy conversation, and I'm suspecting in one conversation it will not do the job. So the conversation is supposed to be ongoing. What is, in your opinion and your experience, way how kids understand this better? Do you have any suggestions
Yeah,
for our parents?
yes. I can speak from my experience, not just professionally. I always come from a front of, the child loves the parent. They want what is best for the parent, right? And the parent wants
Mhm.
what's best for the child. So if we
Yeah.
call it a family affair, then you want to take time, of course, to speak to your family. You might not get there right away. Like my husband, I know that he
Mm,
didn't want to say anything, and I, maybe being the doctor, and I always want to be open disclosure. Let's face this together. But with time, he understood. So how do you do it? Just talk to them. I love you as my child. This is what I'm faced, but I'm glad that scientists, I mean, there's evidence scientifically that I can reverse this, but I need your help. We can do this together because I
mm-hmm.
have the genes. There's a tendency that you might have it, but guess what? We can change it. So let's do this together. I need your help. You need my help. So that's where you start. If you come from that front, but not being strict and saying no more of this,
Yeah.
because I did that once. I got rid of milk in my house. Oh my gosh. And everyone thought, they were all screaming, what is it? But I had to go back, put it back, and gradually show them the options. Taste the different one.
Mm-hmm.
Which one are we going to do? So make it a gradual thing. Rome wasn't built in a day. So gradually, that's what
Yeah.
I would advise. But be open about it. Take suggestions. Listen to their ideas, because you'd be surprised the great ideas that they would come up with. So those would be my advice.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bobs. We are running out of time. Let's go to announcements. So, first of all, I wanted to thank you for this conversation, for your time coming over and sharing your experiences. And if any one of our listeners will want to continue conversation with you, to get in touch with you, how they can contact you, what would be the best way to contact you?
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to share with your listeners. I always love connection, so please reach out to me. I am at livingatyourfinest.com. I do have educational resources on my YouTube, Living at Your Finest Wellness, as well as a podcast, Living at Your Finest. If you want to email me, I'd love to hear from you. It will be Dr. Babs at livingatyourfinest.com. But yes, those are all my social handles. Just put Living at Your Finest. You'll be in touch with me. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Well, and my few announcements are, first of all, I wanted to remind our listeners, or if you're listening to it for the first time and new to this, every other, well, every Thursday, correct. Every Thursday, we have this podcast at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Diabetically Speaking with SmartMove360. We talk with experts about life with diabetes, what we can do, how we can help ourselves. Every other Wednesday, we have our support group meetings. Every other Wednesday. Today is September 14th. So the next one will be in 2 weeks. The information about support group meetings, so it will be September 27th. The information about those meetings are always posted in our Facebook group, Diabetes 101 for Beginners. So if you lost the track, the count of time, go there, connect with admins, look for announcements in the group, you find this information. The next, I wanted to make sure that everybody aware of our next big event, which is Diabetic Healthcare Expo, where it's the last Saturday of the month of September. We go for 6 hours from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. We invited speakers who are doctors, nutritionists, they're personal trainers, they're life coaches. We have social workers, uh, we have doctors of different areas of expertise talking again about diabetes. So this is the event that you might consider as a diabetes crunch course when you can learn a lot of things about diabetes, what you need to know about it in one day, in 6 hours. So come join us. It will go live in our Facebook group, and you don't need the password or anything. And the last thing I wanted to say thank you to our sponsors, the Milk Life Motivation, On Balance Entertainment, and Life Based Solutions. These are people and organizations that helping us to go live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern and speak with you. We invite our guests. And with that, thank you very much, Dr. Bobs. Everyone, thank you for listening.